Welcome to Modcast, episode number 24. I'm Gordo, there's Gary, and Mr. Capelli. How we doing, boys?
Doing good. Excited to be here.
Are you? Is this excited, Mike?
Well, it is. I mean, you guys hang out here all the time, and I'm, off doing
lovely
other
in
stuff.
the lounge.
He's usually on a call while I'm recording, so it's great to have you on so that we're actually doing the same thing.
Yeah, for those that don't know, they're actually
hall.
in the physical same location and space, same room, maybe 15 feet apart?
Yeah,
Yeah,
15, 18,
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's quite close.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, we've got a good one today. It's AI in the RIA space. Beyond the Hype, part 2. Gary and I did part 1, all things AI, when we kind of wrapped on a couple of things. But we thought we'd bring Mike to the Modcast this time because he's been all over AI for our firm and all over the industry and has a lot of information that he definitely can share. So, you guys want to jump in?
Let's jump in.
Yeah, let's jump in.
Where we want to start is maybe where we left off, which is talking about the perceptions around impact on the financial planning, wealth management space from the deployment of artificial intelligence tools of whatever types. And one of the things we talked about last time was the gap right now in companies necessarily having a strategy or a defined approach to how they're going to utilize AI. I talked about and to recap for our listeners, the recent industry conference we were at where the participants, who were all leading members of fairly large institutions in our business, were surveyed about future impact of artificial intelligence, and around 70% said it will have a significant impact on their organizations, but 75% said they have no current strategy to deploy AI. So we were kind of talking about that. There's this, everyone's talking about it, and at least in that particular room, 75% are doing nothing. But we wanted to maybe take it a little bit further, talk a little bit more about, you're in some different spaces in the industry where you're hearing more about what firms are starting to do. And maybe we talk about what are some of the first wave applications in the way that people are thinking about deploying AI or are deploying AI right now. And we can even talk about some things we're doing, though we're not going to talk about everything we do because we like to maintain some competitive advantage if we have one. But with that,
good news is we're doing something.
We're doing something. Maybe you could just start off by, and for our listeners, Mike, on top of being co-CEO here, is really sort of the head of our overall platform and architect of our platform strategy. So, Mike, what are your just general thoughts on this, and then we'll wind into some more specifics.
Well, yeah, I mean, on your first point about where firms are typically looking to apply AI, so I kind of think about it in 3 different areas, and I think kind of the development typically follows that or will follow that as it progresses. I think you have kind of the core opportunity around efficiency, right, and just kind of automating tasks, right, and I think that's where most people start. They look at that opportunity and they see how they can apply it there. We'll talk a little bit more about how that can play out sometimes. The second is in augmenting subject matter expertise, right? So, for us, we have a tax team, or we've got our estate platform, and for folks that are working in specialized areas, or our investment team, augmenting the knowledge that they have and utilizing an AI in a way to help those areas. I think that's another kind of discrete area that is kind of probably the next level once you start taking advantage of the low-hanging fruit on the efficiency side. And then you've got the third opportunity, which to me is kind of the holy grail, which is using it to really mass personalize the experience for clients and the advice that you're delivering. And I think that's probably a little ways off. And I think some debate on how that actually plays out, how much is AI actually surfaced to the client versus in the background. But again, I think in that first area is where most firms live, right? And they've got a choice kind of initially on how they want to approach it, because there's some pre-built solutions out there you can kind of pull off the shelf, the Zox or the Jump or whatever, and try and apply it. I think a lot of RIAs are doing that and having success there, right? They're seeing how it can help with automating part of the client experience, right? So the meeting process, getting comfortable recording that meeting, having a AI generated summary of it, and automating some follow-up tasks from that. And so you have a number of firms doing that. You have others like us that kind of evaluated that, saw a lot of overlap with what we already had in our wealth tech stack and our overall technology platform, and decided to be a bit more intentional on trying to target some specific parts of the client experience. And I think you have a lot of firms really grappling with that, like still on, to the survey that was done. They're trying to figure out, well, they know that the AI train is coming. They're not sure what to do about it yet. They don't have a strategy. And they're trying to figure out, do I go and buy something right now, or do I go and try and build something for my firm specifically at this point?
Yeah, it's funny. I read an article this morning, and like just the really light AI touch. You're touching on some of the tools available to advisors in the industry, but like having a tool that does like helping you automate emails, right? Like reading your inbox and then summarizing the inbox and then helping you craft an email to a prospect or a client, right? So nothing falls through the cracks, or note taking during a client meeting, or uploading statements and saying, tell me what's on this statement and how we can improve this particular client's financial life, or running segmentation and like, what should I do for the different segments of my book of business, or building some light workflows. That's not having an AI strategy. That's using some AI tools to do some things, right? But it's not really the driver or lifter of work that we think about when we think about AI, right? And productivity and what it could do for us and how it can drive the firm forward. What have you seen or what have you heard about that is like, wow, I hadn't considered that or hadn't contemplated that, and that's somebody's really using this in a cool and exciting way. Have you anything popped
definitely.
out?
Yeah, definitely. And again, I mean, these, I'll mention a couple. I would say these are firms that are probably at the bleeding edge of this and really applying it within the firm. In no way do I think this is what the typical firm out there is doing.
Yeah.
There was I saw a couple of examples. One was on dealing with a situation with a retiring advisor and using an agent to start interacting with that retiring advisor on all of their meeting prep and interaction with clients, and really getting to learn how that retiring advisor has been working with their clients. And the goal being that when the advisor does retire and it's already been lined up who the successor is and is working with them, but that successor now has an agent to interact with to, ask the question like, well, what would Rich do in this case, with his client, right? And kind of has an avatar of the retired advisor to interact with after the advisor has retired and left.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean that, like, now we're talking about like an actual use case, right? If the average advisor in our industry is what everybody reports, late 50s, 60, and let's say they wanted to run around for the next 3 to 5 years as an advisor and meet with clients, turning on that agent, that's an awesome way to really build up institutional knowledge about each and every client and each and every conversation and what's important and how we can be impactful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's far better than just note taking.
Right. Exactly. There was another interesting one, a story I'd heard about someone using AI to help. It was a larger firm, had a number of advisors, and really wanted to help each advisor be a bit better in how they're engaging with their clients. And so went through this process of basically tuning up an AI agent to around a particular, and I'll call it a sales model, or what the coaching, right, services that are out there, right, that help with advisors.
Yeah.
Tune it up around what are the key elements of that and how you should be engaging with your either new prospects or existing clients, and then basically set it loose on their entire CRM, right, for each client and all the information I could gather. It then came up with a set of bullet points on what the advisor kind of recommended things that they should be thinking about as they're approaching the next conversation with that person.
Yeah, so it's unique and custom to the engagement of that prospect.
Yep.
Right.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah. There was a day when I first got into the business, all portfolios were just a collection of advisors' ideas that they had gathered along the way, and there was no consistent or unique or nothing was the same. Everything was different, right? And then there's been this for the last 25 years, this like, you got to get to models. Everybody's got to own the same thing. You got to do block trades. You got to like run money the same way at the same time to simplify the advisor's life and to create scale and capacity and opportunity to grow. So you're not just pushing buttons all day long managing money. And now we're moving into a phase in the business where what you were just talking about, Mike, it's highly customized and specific to every single client and interaction and engagement, where with AI, we now can splinter back out and everybody can have unique and very specific and custom investment advice and investment holdings and tax advice and tax, engagement. So it's where we went from everything scattered down to models to now we're going back to hyper customization, right?
Yep.
So how does AI help execute on that?
Yeah, well, no, definitely. I mean, it brings scale back to personalization, right? And at the end of the day, I think the industry was only partially successful in scaling, because to the examples you gave, they're very much investment focused. Yeah. And where have we gone in our client relationships? Well beyond investments. And there aren't really true client level models for their entire financial life, right? They're bespoke. Like every client's unique, right? They have their own goals and challenges and so on. So I'd say AI has given us the ability, given the reality that every situation is bespoke, it actually gives you a way to scale into that, right? And be able to manage that relationship in a controlled and quality way on a go-forward basis.
I think that's a really great point, and I think when we talk about bringing scale to personalization, there's a lot of clickbait content out there, and as there always is. Will robots replace humans? It's always the theme. It's been in science fiction for centuries, and but I think I'm thinking about this, and the takeaway to me for financial advisors is not AI is going to replace you. It's advisors who are using technology well are going to run circles around you, because if you're not bringing scale to personalization, if you're not, there'll be a point where if you're ever like, well, what did we talk about in that last meeting? With a client, you're going to be so far behind the people who are using the technology in the background to help them provide a highly hyper-personalized approach and have very high touch. I mean, the interesting thing is it's not, at least for people like us who can't envision the robots replacing the humans, it's not about people going, oh, I'd rather just work with an AI tool. It's, I should be able to get a much, much better, much more personalized, much more detailed level of service from the person I work with or team I work with for the same or lower cost. And then on the flip side is that those advisors who are really good at it should be able to do it for a lot more people and build much bigger businesses.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you get both of those advantages. I mean, I think you're right. I don't, as has been true, I'd say, up until now, the way to protect that 1% fee has been the expansion of services. And I think that'll be true going forward, to your point, right? It'll be what more can we do at a higher quality level for clients and be able to still retain a similar kind of revenue profile for what they'll get a lot more though, right? Clients will get a lot more at a higher quality than what they currently do. And in addition, I think allow advisors to scale the number of clients that they can impact.
Yeah. This week I was at an event and one of the speakers was talking about the digital workforce or the agent, right? And people get kind of like, what are you talking about, a digital workforce? And really what they got to was, in their view, the digital employee would cost a third what the actual human employee would cost. And they would be 3 to 5 times more productive than the human employee, but it wasn't going to replace any human employees, right? At least in the beginning, because we got to train them and we got to teach them. And but what he was saying is, you could literally train an agent to be an RM across thousands of clients. You could train an agent to be a CSA, right? So let's just the CSA is doing the personal stuff like booking the appointment, scheduling, shooting some emails. The RM's doing the financial stuff. It's doing the deep analysis. You could have an operations agent. It's the tactics of running the relationship. You could have an agent that's trained in IM and like what portfolio and what has to be true for this portfolio to get allocated to that particular client, a tax agent, an estate agent. And so you could have all of this digital workforce working for you in the background to get to your point. So you could work with a lot more clients, and it's not doing the work for you without you. It's wrapping yourself with a digital workforce that's surfacing to you, the advisor, the action list or the task list to do the next morning when you get to the office, right? It's saying, hey, Gary needs this today, or Mike should consider this today. What do you want me to do, boss? And then you're directing the agents. They're not like secretly doing work that is direct to the client. It's surfacing the right work to you to perform for the client.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, you talk about a supercharged advisor, right? I mean,
right.
Having, it's just interesting to think about the advisory practice of the future, right? And I mean, even as low as the barrier to entry is today, imagine how much lower it is and how much more you can scale it quickly at a low cost. I mean, it's pretty breathtaking thinking about that.
Yeah. And I mean, this guy was saying it was a third of the cost of a human employee today. Yeah. I think that's going.
I think it's going to go down. I'm surprised.
That's going to zero.
Yeah.
Like it's going to get really low.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's funny because I remember having these conversations 15 to 20 years ago when the robo advisors were coming out, and obviously there were a lot of predictions then, and the business we were in then, we very much believed in the human advisor powered by technology. And I remember talking about it was around the time the movie Iron Man was out, and I was like, it's not the transformer, it's the guy in the Iron Man suit that's going to be the advisor. And I don't know that we've achieved that at this point, but I think that's sort of where this industry comes down. And I think that as with anything, I mean, there's a lot of direct investing and online investing today, and people can choose a model. And the reality is, it's just technology is going to create more choice for people. But I think where we're sort of seeing, certainly the first efforts here are going to be around this. How do you create a better, more efficient advisor, which then should lead to a better quality of service for the clients. But
all right, so one thing I joke a lot about is let's think about the 30 or 35, 40-year-old advisor in our industry, right? And they're considering changing firms. and they walk from their current firm into your office door, and they meet this lovely person at the reception desk, and they're kind of looking at the copy print center, and they see this thing that has like a phone connected to it. It's something unique. It's maybe called a fax machine. And if somebody walks into your office and they find a fax machine, often they're looking for the exit door very quickly, because that is not a firm that's forward looking or leaning, right? And I don't know what the modern day fax machine is, but I know the modern employee or the modern firm has an AI strategy in a big, and I don't mean modern wealth management, I mean the modern day bleeding edge firm. Are you making AI investments, and how do those investments attract the next generation leader or advisor talent in the business? I think that's something that firms need to reconcile right now. And if you don't have an AI strategy, that next generation advisor or leader, you're not interesting to them. Mike, what do you think about when you think about how we attract the future employee at Modern?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on. You have to be working in this space. AI has already had a massive impact within the regular consumer market in the U.S. Right? I mean, almost everybody out there is just trying it in some way, and as a firm, you have to be doing something. You're going to look like a dinosaur if you're not doing at least something. And it doesn't mean, I had mentioned earlier on, I think there's a choice a firm needs to make about how big do you go out of the gate. When a firm is thinking about how to step into AI, right? Where do you start? I think you have to realize that this is not only a technology challenge. This is a change management challenge as well, right? So not everyone in your organization is forward leaning on AI. They might be trying it out. Some aren't, right? And I think you've got to recognize that there's an element of change management and be thoughtful about what's your initial step going to be, because you want to be successful at it and be able to start to get some momentum within your employee base around it. All right. And, for us, it was, looking at how can we have an immediate impact with our advisory teams on, for us, it was meeting prep, right? Just going through and all the data you have to pull together to get ready for an upcoming meeting. What's the client summary? What's the agenda we're going to have for the client meeting? That can take over half an hour to pull together, and to have the ability just to press a button and in an instant have all of that come together. You're providing something to your employees that has immediate benefit and that they're pulling from you, right? They're engaged, they want it. You got to find things like that. I have heard stories of firms that are starting down this AI path, and they put something out there, whatever it might be, and you build it and they don't come. Like, they're not showing up, they're not using it. Like, that's the worst outcome, right? Now you've gone and you've made some investment, and now you don't have any users for it, and you don't have any engagement around it, and you're getting no momentum in this direction. To wrap it around back to your point, Gordo, I think this is where the employees of the future that you want are the ones that are forward leaning, and they want to see that your organization is engaged around this and has some excitement and momentum around it. And so it's important to be thoughtful in where you start, so you've got some early successes to build from.
Yeah, and that's not just turning on a couple of AI tools and saying that you have an AI strategy, right? If you have like a corporate chat GPT license and maybe a Copilot license and a couple of tools that have been built for advisors, and you throw them on your tech stack and say, yeah, we have AI.
Yep.
Like, the next generation advisor is going to look at you and go like, you have no idea what AI is. Yeah. This is not a strategy. These are some tools, but this is not strategy. So Gary, I know you think a lot about the future threat and kind of like, how are we wrapping advisors in tooling? How are we making sure our teams are constantly productive and efficient in the ways that they want to be. But what do you think about the future threat? When you hear the words future threat to the business, what are you thinking about?
So, I can't help but go back to my studies as a history major in college, and I think about and I won't go off on a long tangent here, but history podcasts are very popular. So maybe we can call it modern history. I think a little bit about, other technological disruptions in history and like the Industrial Revolution was a big one. And, which we didn't live through. We have lived through the advent of the internet. And, I think if you look back at history, like all of these, every new technology is seen as both a wonder and a threat at the time it's emerging. And you can read about anything and read about how it's going to destroy civilization when it was coming out, radio, telephones, television. And so far, none of it destroyed civilization, but they did change civilization. And they changed, in this case, how people worked and some of the kinds of jobs people had. And I think, so I'm going to just say broadly and then get more narrow, whereas the Industrial Revolution was really about physical labor and making that more efficient. And it undoubtedly eliminated categories of jobs, but broadly actually created, better jobs over time, higher wages, higher standards of living. But there was a lot of disruption. This AI is much more about knowledge work and cognitive work. So it will absolutely have a big impact on this business, which is a knowledge work and business, but it's also a relationship business. And you're always going to have had people who say, well, I'd rather just, whether it's DIY, do it yourself, E-Trade and other online investing tools have been around for, now 30 years, right? So it's not like there hasn't been a way to work without an advisor and manage money. In our case, obviously, it's about much more than just managing money. It's your whole financial life. But I think there is a threat. I think it would be just completely wrong to say that it's not like there aren't going to be cases and companies and businesses that we don't know the names of today that are going to be built on technology that are much more direct and much less human led, that could very well be successful. But again, I think it's incumbent upon those of us who believe, which we believe, in it being a people-to-people experience, but powered by technology, to create, the solutions that allow our advisors, our teams, to just have more knowledge at their fingertips, as we talked about earlier, and provide a higher level of client experience than you've been able to do when you had to do everything much more manually. And we'll start to even think of just having had CRM systems as being much more manual, because I had to get the notes into it and all that stuff. So I think it's going to cause an evolution. It's going to cause a shift in the way people work. And there will be generational change, and there will be people who are in the business right now who will never change and will be able to retire and finish their careers without having had to do anything, because they're at that stage where it's like, well, I don't need to learn this,
Well, and their clients are probably at an age where they'll just continue to be happy getting what they've had.
They expect to be worked worked with in the way that they've become accustomed to, and they don't need to change that. So it's really about, starting now, but the clients who are emerging and the team members who are emerging 5, 10, 15 years down the road. The thing that's interesting for this business, and I don't think we have time to get into it today, but another thing that is widely predicted about the wealth management industry is that there's a massive looming advisor shortage coming because of the average age of advisors in America and the fact that fewer and fewer younger people are choosing to go into this business. You also don't have what you had 20 or 30 years ago, which was like big wirehouses training, tons of people and then sort of
That's how I got to
spinning
the
them out
industry.
into the industry. And that's been true for a number of years. And so, there might not be an advisor shortage and, because people might work more efficiently, or we may get attracted to the business, different types of people who maybe would never have considered financial services or never considered wealth management, who are like, I want to work in this cool tech-enabled way, and I think I can really help people doing it this way. I would never have done it the old-fashioned way. So, and I think the firms that are leaning forward are going to be leaning into, you might even have distribution kind of strategies where it's like, well, I've got advisors who are like kind of old school. We'll call it old school wealth, wealth co. And then we've got new school wealth co, and they might be coexisting for a while.
Yeah. Well, look, I think this is still very much a human-led business. And the reason I say that is humans can provide things that computers will never be capable of in at least the balance of my career, I believe. I could be wrong, but trust, right? We're in the business. What do we offer? We offer trust. We offer judgment. We offer experience. We know what corner to look around, and we know that we don't have to look around all corners, right? We kind of have the ability to anticipate the next thing. And the bots or the agents can help us, but at the end of the day, this is a human-led business, and trust, judgment, and experience will win the day. And we become the client's financial decision partner, right? That's our job as advisors. It used to be just manage money. Then it was do financial planning and allocate capital. And then it was like, maybe we do a little bit of tax planning. Well, we have to be so much more to clients than just that. And I think the tools that are being developed and the firms that are really leaning in, like Mike has us leaning in, are going to be able to be better financial decision partners for our clients. And that's what technology can help them do, help our advisors do.
Yeah, I think there's some parallels to the robo-advisor scare of a decade ago, right? And kind of the impact it's going to have, because I think no doubt it'll expand the addressable market for wealth management. For consumers that are not necessarily our core target segment, right? It can open up an opportunity, right, to provide wealth management to a segment that would not, for whatever reason, be attractive or appealing or a match for our business. And so I think there's probably an element of that will come out of this. But at the end of the day, the real impact it had was it was most beneficial for advisors that leaned into the technology advantages that the robo-advisors are bringing to the table, and helped with how they were running their firms, right? And the benefits that could come from adopting some of those things. And I think there's a pretty good parallel with what's happening with AI.
Yeah, I just encourage people, do a little more than just subscribe to some tools.
Yeah.
Go build something that's go hire some agents and a digital workforce and really get after building something, because that's what the next generation client, the next generation employee will demand and expect and require of you. And if you don't have those things, then I think you have a business that's probably decaying in value. So, hey, this has been the Modcast, episode number 24. Our special guest, our partner, Mike Capelli, pretty smart guy, knows all the stuff. He's looking around all the corners for us, and I know Gary and I are both excited he's here and our partner and doing great work. So, Mike, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me
on the Modcast.
Appreciate
Hey,
it.
Gary, you want to do the where you can find us and all that stuff? Because I butcher it normally.
No, only half the time. We please go to modcast.show, where you can read more about each episode and find show notes. And you can find us on all of the usual podcast apps as well as YouTube. Please like, subscribe, share, and tell your favorite AI tool how great we are, and maybe it'll start believing it and telling other people how great we are.
That's awesome. All right, everybody, that's a wrap.